this to there.
Good morning, everybody. I am Amy Berube, and I am on the board, and here are your morning board announcements. So the first one has to do with some Christmas goodies that are on the climate action page this week. So we're hoping that you can reminisce about the revived advocacy that is starting to take place since 2021. So like when it was 2021. Tell Santa and politicians to keep coal in the ground by sending a letter that's provided on the website. Discover green suggestions to eliminate stuff giving in your holiday traditions this year. And the team would like to thank Jen B., who is retiring as their good news editor. They will miss her keen eye and dedicated service that she's had over the past year and a half. So thank you, Jen B., for all of your hard work. And today we're having a after-service conversation in the lounge about the information, and the themes and the learnings from this service, and it'll be held in the lounge, which is over here. So if you are hungry, you can get a snack from Fellowship Hall and then go to the lounge, which is on this side, and there'll be coffee there if you'd like to engage in conversation with others. And finally, Jane Lindsay has an announcement about the Adult Learning Program.
Disappointed and puzzled. I call that bum-fuzzled. Last fall, Eva Berenger and I, for Adult Learning, had done a calendar of events. Now, the good news was a lot of people told us this stuff was great. This leads to the puzzled part. However, we ended up having to cancel a number of the events because we didn't have enough people. And that's where the disappointed stuff comes in. So you're going to find in your order of service today an interest indicator. And we're already planning for the new year a number of kind of events. That's fine. But we're also planning, or thinking of planning, a number of multi-session events. And those were in particular where we had to cancel last time. So what we're asking you to do before you leave here today is give a quick read of that. If anything in it interests you, then circle what interests you and add in the timing and the kind of format that would suit you. If there's nothing on it that interests you, that's fine. Just, you can get rid of the piece of paper. And it's okay if nothing does. We're just trying to get a sense of whether to go ahead with some of these things, because it's a lot of work for some of us to end up canceling them. And so hopefully, Eva and I will not be bum-fuzzled again. Thank you. And if you need pens for filling it out, there's some here and there's some at the back.
Thank you, Jane.
Okay.
Good morning. During December, our sing-along preludes are going to be seasonal selections. We have so much music that is wonderful at this time of year, and we don't often get the chance to go through all of it. So it's going to change every week, but it'll always be something seasonal. And this week it's going to be O Come, Emmanuel. you can look at the screen. It is also in your gray hymnals at number 225 if you'd like to look at those, but it's on the screen. So we'll start here. Oh, come, Emmanuel, and with your captive children dwell. Give comfort to all exiles here, and to the aching heart bid cheer. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee as love to dwell. Oh, come, ye splendor, come and cheer. Oops. As joy that never yields to might. Oh, come and turn all hearts to peace, that greed and war at last shall cease. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come within as love to dwell.
Bonjour tout le monde. Julia, can we go back to the first verse of Emmanuel? Because there's a line there that is going to resonate later in the service. Give comfort to all exiles here. Welcome, everyone, to the First Unitarian congregation of Ottawa, whether you are here in worship hall or watching from wherever warm, toasty place you may be. Know that you are welcome. I'm the Reverend Eric Meter, the congregation's lead minister.
And I'm Susan, your worship associate this morning. We acknowledge that our FirstU campus is located on traditional, unsurrendered, and unceded Algonquin Anishinaabe territory, and that the work of reconciliation is a responsibility of our congregation and of all Canadians. Our goal is to educate ourselves and all those who have the willingness to understand, to be of service to those who are at risk, and to advocate for justice. To begin, Jen will introduce our opening song.
Our opening song today is Sometimes I Feel Like a Motherless Child. And as always, I like to give some context to music like this. And today I'm going to quote from an article by Deborah Lou Harder on the origins of the song. With genius and grace, African-American enslaved people transformed bitter human experience into a beautiful art form called the spiritual. One of the most haunting African-American spirituals, Sometimes I Feel Like a Motherless Child, was likely born out of heart-wrenching tragedy, the forcible separation of parent from child. As Harriet Jacobs, an escaped slave, enslaved person, wrote, "On one of those sale days, I saw a mother lead 7 children to the auction block. She knew that some of them would be taken from her, but they took all. The children were sold to a slave trader, and their mother was bought by a man in her own town. Before night, her children were all far away. She begged the trader to tell her where he intended to take them. This he refused to do." So that's some context as we sing this piece today. Oh, and you can rise in body or spirit.
As health challenges continue, do take care and take advantage of online opportunities at FirstU to stay in touch. If you are new to FirstU and would like to learn more about us, please contact us through our email at welcome@firstunitarianottawa.ca. And if you are right here in Worship Hall with us this morning and would like more information about FirstU, it is available from Carol at the welcome table at the back of the pews, and she's waving at us. We encourage you to sign up to receive the EUU, our weekly email newsletter. Sign-up information is available on our website under the Communications tab and as a QR code on the back of our printed orders of service. Check our Facebook and Instagram pages and our website for notices and updates. Our calendar continues to be as full as ever, though some of our activities take place online. This morning, each of us is welcome. We of any heritage or faith, whatever our burdens, of any culture or race, of any gender or orientation, in any body, all that we are, today we are all a part of this spiritual community.
Thank you, Susan. Jen. As you've been keyed into this morning, we will be hearing a story of living amid loss and Jen's introduction to the song we just sang. We'll be talking about some sad things this morning. If anything feels triggering for you, please, first and foremost, take care of yourself. And to begin with this morning's reflection on the losses we carry with us, often and especially at this time of year, we light our chalice this morning to these words of welcome from Sylvia Howe. Chalice of our gathered community, be to us a flame of love and justice, love so we can offer care and concern to those who enter our doors, justice, so we will work to make freedom and equality a reality for the lives of all people with whom we share this earth. Chalice of our gathered community, may your light grow in our hearts and in our minds. Now, I want to say a word before we get to our chalice song. When I was talking with Jody, our religious educator, what I wanted to do was to shape this service on a story and reflection. But then we need the board announcements, and especially today, we need our joys and sorrows. And so the other things that we normally do kind of got added. But the story Jody will tell in just a minute is the center part of our time today. It is a story for all ages with the children downstairs, because this is a story for adults, grown-ups of all ages. But first, for the children that remain inside each of us, and to keep our hearts alive and beating together, let us sing now our chalice song. The words will be on the screen above.
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
Is there?
Okay. You said the thing about children, and I thought perhaps we were singing.
Oh, no.
Anyway, okay. I'm so sorry. It's a day. Okay. Chalice, chalice, burning bright, help remind us with your light of how we'd like to live each day, with love and truth helping lead the way.
Good morning, everyone. I am Jody McIntosh, the Director of Religious Exploration, and my story this morning is called Tear Soup by Pat Schriebert and Chuck DeKylan. There once was an old and somewhat wise woman who everyone called Grandy. She just suffered a big loss in her life. Pops, her husband, suffered the same loss, but in his own way. This is the story of how Grandy faced her loss by setting out to make tear soup. For many years, the custom of making tear soup had been forgotten. But several years ago, Grandy got a taste of a well-seasoned tear soup. One of her friends made it from scratch after her child had died. As soon as Grandy tasted the rich flavor of that carefully made soup, she promised herself never again to forget about the power of tear soup. Because of her great loss, Grandy knew this time her recipe for tear soup would call for a big pot. With a big pot, she would have plenty of room for all the memories of all the misgivings, all the feelings, and all the tears that she needed. She put on her apron because she knew it would get messy. It seems that grief is never clean. People feel misunderstood, feelings get hurt, and wrong assumptions are made all over the place. And then Grandy started to cry. At first, she sobbed. Sometimes she wept quietly, and sometimes when she was in a safe place where no one could hear her, she even wailed. Grandy knew she had to make much of this part of the soup alone. She learned from past experience that most people don't like being around tears. Her friends would worry if they knew just how many tears Grandy's recipe called for this time. So Grandy reflected on her own special recipe as she looked down into the large, overflowing pot of memories. Grandy winced when she took a sip of the broth. All she could taste was salt from her teardrops. It tasted bitter, but she knew this was where she had to start. There were things that Grandy never wanted to forget. These included the good times and the bad times, the silly and the sad times. And one at a time, she slowly stirred all her precious and not so precious memories into the pot. But eventually, she ran out of things to add. Grandy's arms ached as she felt stone cold and empty. What's more, when she looked out the window, it surprised her to see how the rest of the world was going on as usual while her world had stopped. Her grandson Chester, who just wanted his Grandy to be better again, hoped his chocolate drops would make her feel better. Grandy's neighbors dropped by to see how Grandy was doing. They filled the air with words, but none of their words took the smell of tear soup away. Grandy was gracious because she knew how helpless her friends felt. All Grandy really needed from them at that moment was a knowing look and a warm hug. There were also days when Grandy hungered for a thoughtful ear. Sometimes she would ask total strangers, "Care to join me for a bowl of tear soup?" "No, thanks," most would reply. "I don't have time for tear soup today." Even some of Grandy's friends hurried past her house and pretended not to notice the aroma of tear soup coming through her open door. Grandy found that most people can tolerate only a cup of someone else's tear soup. The giant bowl where Grandy could repeatedly share her sadness in great detail was left for a few willing friends. "I'm here," Midge cried. "I got here as fast as I could. I'll be here whenever you need me. What a tragedy. I'm sorry you're having to make such a big pot of soup." Oh, what a relief. Grandy knew she didn't have to be careful what she said around Midge. Midge wouldn't try to talk her out of anything she was feeling, and Grandy could even laugh and not worry that Midge would assume Grandy was over her grief. "Sorry I couldn't get here sooner," said Midge. "No problem," replied Grandy. "I've had plenty of help, but most of these friends will be history pretty soon. They'll be over my tragedy long before I am, but I know you will still be around." "I don't know what to say, but I'll be glad to listen," Midge said tenderly. "Come on, tell me all about it when we make some bread to go along with your soup." These two friends had shared 1,000 laughs and just as many tears, pounded at the bread dough together. "I feel like I'm unraveling," Grandy cried. "I'm mad. I'm confused. I can't make any decisions. Nobody can make me feel good. I'm a mess. I just didn't realize it would be this hard." "Why don't we go for a walk while we wait for the bread to rise?" Midge suggested. "I know exercise is supposed to help me, but I feel like I have concrete blocks strapped to my legs. We'd better not go too far or you'll have to carry me home," moaned Grandy. Mrs. Cries-a-Lot called and reminded Grandy that she had been making tear soup for years and could be right over and show her how to make it the correct way. "Thanks, but no," said Grandy. "This pot has my name on it." Grandy knew better than to let Mrs. Cries-a-Lot tell her what she should do to get through this terrible loss. Next, her recipe called for some comfort food. For Grandy, this meant mashed potatoes or ice cream. Comfort food always makes you feel better, at least for a little while. It gets past that big lump in your throat when other foods can't. Grandy kept attending worship even though she was mad at God. Sometimes she yelled at God and asked why this happened, and sometimes she demanded to know where God was when she was feeling so alone. She sensed that people believed that if she really had faith, she would be spared deep sorrow, anger, and loneliness. Grandy kept reminding herself to be grateful for all the emotions that God gave her. People would ask questions like, "Is it soup yet?" Or, "How long is it going to take? You have been at this for over a month now. It's time to get out of the kitchen." Grandy fumed at the caller's advice. Grandy looked forward to getting the mail each day. She dreaded the day when no more sympathy cards would come. Thank goodness Grandy and Pops had been married a long time. They already knew each other's tear soup would be very different. Secretly, Grandy wished Pops would put more flavoring in his soup, but he didn't want to, and he's perfectly content to dine alone and sip his own soup. Making tear soup is hard work. Sometimes it was all she could think about. Even the things Grandy used to love to do, she didn't have the energy for, nor did she care about anymore. Some of Grandy's friends over the years had not tended to their tear soup. Their soup had boiled over and the pot scorched. What a mess. It took them a long time to clean up their pots and start over. The smell of burnt soup still lingers in some of their homes. Grandy knew there were times when she needed to take a break from her soup making. Even though it was hard to do, she forced herself to get away. Grandy heard that a neighbor was having to take her turn in the kitchen. Some people thought that the neighbor was eating too much tear soup. So Grandy called and invited her to a special soup gathering where it's not bad manners to cry in your soup or have second helpings. Soon the thoughtful cook sat at Grandy's table and discussed the process of making tear soup. There are some parts that require help from friends and some parts you just have to do alone. They shared stories about soup making they wouldn't dare tell anyone else for fear of being judged a bad cook. These people had become Grandy's new best friends. One day, as Grandy and Chester were going for a drive, Chester asked, "Mom says you've been making tear soup. What does this mean?" "Well, tear soup is a way for you to sort through all the different types of feelings and memories you have when you lose someone or something special. Remember when your baby brother died right before he was born and your mom sat for days holding his blanket and weeping? She was making tear soup. You made tear soup yourself by acting out your own disappointment when you shouted at Jason, wishing his brother would die too. Remember when Billy's dog died and he didn't want to play with you? Not feeling like having fun is one of the ingredients of tear soup also. And remember when Aunt May got divorced and they had to move? There was a lot of tear soup simmering in that house. Some days when you're making tear soup, it's even hard to breathe. Some days you feel like running away. You just hope a better day comes along soon. And then comes hardest part of making tear soup. It's when you decide it may be okay to eat something instead of soup all of the time. Chester asked Grandy if she was done making tear soup. "Well, I don't think you actually ever finish. The hard work of making this batch of soup is almost done. I'll put the rest in the freezer and we'll pull it out from time to have just a little taste." So, What else have you learned about making tear soup, Grandy? I've learned that grief, like a pot of soup, it changes the longer it simmers and the more things you put into it. I've learned that sometimes people say unkind things, but they really don't mean to hurt you. And most importantly, I've learned that there is something down deep within all of us, ready to help us survive the things we think we can't survive. Grandy, you know so much. What will I do after you die? Don't worry. I will leave you my recipe for tear soup. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. It was a religious educator I worked with in a previous congregation who introduced me to tear soup. I wish I knew its recipe long before I did. Each week, we pause in our time together in recognition of the joys and sorrows in our lives and across the globe. We honor our celebrations and challenges by placing stones in small bowls of water. As the ripples extend outward, we imagine them continuing out beyond these small bowls, out through and past our pews, out into the larger community of all. This Sunday, we begin our regular practice with the recognition by members of our men's breakfast club of the women slain at Montreal's École Polytechnique on the 6th of December, 1989, 35 years ago this last Friday. Come forward now, and as I read the names of the women slain, a special, heartfelt, heart-shaped stone will be placed for each. Genevieve Bergeron, Hélène Colgan, Barbara, my pronunciation is Vida Jewish, Barbara, that means I'm looking at you, David. Barbara Dagnon, Anne-Marie Edouard, Maud Havernick, Natalie Courteau, Maryse Lagonière, Maryse Leclerc, Anne-Marie Lemain, Sonia Pelletier, Michelle Mimi Richard, Annie Saint-Arnaud, and lastly, Annie Turcot. Thank you, dear and gentle men. Susan, will you help me place a couple more stones? We have no more stones of sorrow that I know of, but a stone of thanksgiving for the generosity that was on display here last Wednesday night, where the snow threatened a fundraising concert, but all 32 of the instrumentalists made it, and we raised over $650 for our food bank. A stone for the, I'll say, miraculous rebirth of Notre Dame de Paris. And I'm going to ask some others to join me for our next stone. We got some very good news first thing yesterday morning. Reverend Mubitsa and Brent and Eva and anyone else who has been instrumental in the work of the last last year and a half in bringing forward, getting refugee status for some refugees from Burundi. Mubitsa, I wasn't going to say, this is yours. You've got the podium.
Thank you. Some time ago, it feels like an eternity for refugees who are waiting. 4 applications were sent to Immigration Canada for 4 young men, 3 who live in Kigali, Rwanda, another one who live in Uganda. Yesterday morning, we got news that 2 of those young men had their visas were issued, and we should expect them in the next 7 weeks. Can be earlier, can be a little bit later. But this morning, it is a tear of joy that those people have been waiting for 9 years as refugees, while having now a chance to begin a new life. It's also an opportunity to thank all of you, the refugee committee, Eva and Brent, who did a tremendous work, filling forms and all the process to get us where we are now. So very soon, Elvis and Randri will be here. Thank you for giving them a second chance.
I cannot wait to meet Elvis and Landry and the other young men to come. Against this background, we live our lives. I would invite you, if you would, to come forward and place a stone representing a challenge or a joy or a struggle that you are living with. Place our stones in the shared fonts of water. That last stone, as always, represents all that remains in the silent sanctuary of our hearts. As we have no carrying cards today, let us move now into a time of stillness and reflection. After several moments, we'll come back together through the gift of music. If any of you have been looking at your watches, we're going to go a little longer than the hour today. There are probably more recipes for tear soup than there are people alive. The story that Jody told us, I've read it and heard it many times in the last 15 years since the story has been introduced to me, and each time there's a new facet that rings and sparks through. I can't help but think of the Christmas after my mother died. She died in mid-December '09, so she would have been the Christmas of '08 that she spent with me. It was my first year in Columbus, Ohio. We went for a long hike at a city park along a river where there was a nesting bald eagle that some of us, if we were lucky enough, got to get a glimpse of every now and then. And that year, a couple weeks after her death, I remember calling family and friends, and they were with loved ones, and they gave me 5-10 minutes, but that was all they could give me. And I didn't want to take up any more of their time because they were having a lovely time, and I was calling them so I wouldn't be alone, so I wouldn't feel as alone as I really felt. Now that's just a little story of mine. You will have your stories as well. There's nothing remarkably special about my experience. I remember that story, and it's a way of remembering my mother, Emily Custer Meter. And I can't help but think of her this time of year. She would have loved a walk along the river today, especially on a day with some sunlight coming through. Going far afield now, late in his career, Sigmund Freud wrote about his understanding that the two most important things in our lives being love and work. I've never been able to disagree with that summation. And at the same time, I have to admit, and if I haven't shared this with you, I probably have, central parts of my ministry are love and loss. I remember coffee hour, probably a month into my first professional ministry. I was a little over 30 at the time, and I was talking with a new congregant in their 50s who had just experienced the death of a parent, and they were completely at a loss. In their 50s, they thought they knew what life was about. And here, for the first time in their life, there was grief that took them and upended them. And they were as startled by that, and they were also angry. Because at 50, you should know, they felt they should know what life was about. And here was something that turned their sense of things on its head. I was applying for seminaries during the months that my father was struggling with his cancer. And I think I've shared before that both my parents and I lived within 2 miles of Interstate 495 between the Chicago suburbs and Minneapolis, St. Paul. And during the year and a half he lived with his pancreatic cancer, the 411 miles between our two homes felt like home to me because I was going back as often as I could to be with him. And how grateful I am that I had that time. I'm not even going to look at what I wrote. We're off the script this morning. I hope that all of you have a sense of how to make some kind of tear soup. And if I misspeak and say stone soup instead, I hope you realize it just because the stone soup story is so fundamental deep down in my brain. I'm not sure there's a difference between the two kinds of soup. One is a little more private, the other is intentionally public. Maybe that's the distinction. I hope that when we come together as part of this community, we feel in this good company that we're able to be courageous and share even a little of what we would add to our tear soup with one another. I was reminded of someone who had raised her children in this congregation and moved away, is now back in Ottawa and attends on occasion. Her husband died not long ago after a long struggle with brain cancer. And his family had a memorial service for him that didn't speak to his wife, didn't speak to who he was, talked about who he was to his family. And I had to say, there doesn't need to be just one memorial service for anyone. If you need something different, we'll help you do something different. You're in the driver's seat. And I was reminded of a time years ago, before seminary, when I was a member of the Unitarian Universalist young adult group that met in the First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis. And I got a call from the church's membership director to let me know, Eric, are you sitting down? A member of that group, Vicki Myers, had been killed 5 days into her summer vacation from being a speech pathologist in the public schools. She was walking her bike across a busy intersection and a tanker truck took her out. And those of us, friends of hers in the group, went down to the memorial service that her family held for her. And the pastor there mentioned her name once and then talked about what we owed Jesus Christ. And that may have been what Vicky's family needed. It was not what we needed. So there in the parking lot after the service, we promised ourselves that we would talk to our Unitarian church and we would have another memorial service for Vicky. And we did. Each of us knows some sorrow. Sometimes it is brought forward at this time of season when we're supposed to be, forgive my language, so damn happy. But as our religious educator here, Jody McIntosh, reminded me just a week or so ago, grief never takes a holiday. We have to be where we are, whatever our emotional makeup in the moment. I hope that we are sharing with one another and feel we can share at least parts of our own recipes for tear soup. In the sharing, there's a sweetness. And in the sweetness will come smiles from understanding one another's experience. As the song said, no more alone. That's the goal. That's why we come here. That's why we built this space, so we can feel inspired, even when we feel the most alone. We never are. We celebrate excuse me, I'm banging on things this morning. We celebrate fabulous achievements and we mourn losses. That's what it is to be together. That's what it is to live. And I think we have some more wonderful music to listen to at this time. Jen?
Fusion is going to be performing Little Willow. This is a song by Paul McCartney. This arrangement is by Susan Brumfield. And he wrote it on the death of Maureen Starkey, his dear friend, as a sort of gift for her children. And so to me, of course, music and making music can be such a powerful tool to work through and process grief and loss. And that is, I think, obvious in this song where the willow, it talks about the willow bending and being flexible, which I think is a lovely metaphor for resilience in the face of grief and loss. So, thank you. Oh, and there'll be a solo by Carol Anderson, and we also had one earlier by Laurie Foster McLeod, just to acknowledge our wonderful soloists.
Thank you so much, Jen and singers. Beautiful. Will the ushers please start passing the offering baskets? This congregation has a long history of care, vitality, and bringing people together to move the arc of justice forward. We have been able to live into our hopes and dreams because of the generosity of those within and beyond this community. Whether you are here in Worship Hall or anywhere else, you are part of this community. We rely on one another to keep this congregation vital and resilient. If you have any questions about how you can give, please go to our website or contact our finance manager to find out how to make a donation or keep up with your pledge. And those in Worship Hall can use the QR code on the back of the order of service to make an online donation. Our gifts are freely given and gratefully received. We dedicate these gifts to the work of our community of faith, serving human wholeness, caring for the planet, upholding religious freedom, welcoming the stranger, and loving one another. Now, let us sing together once more. Please rise in body or in spirit as the house band leads us in singing Rising Green. It's number 1068 in the Teal hymnal, and the words will also be on the screen.
Not actually the house band, just me and Callie. Sorry to disappoint. My blood doth rise in the roots of yon oak, her sap doth run in my veins, boundless my soul like the open sky, where the stars forever have lain, where the stars, where the stars, where the stars forever hath lain. My hands hold the weavings of time without end, my side as deep as the sea. Beating my heart sounds the measures of old, that of love's eternity. That of love, that of love, that of love's eternity. I feel the tides as they answer the moon, rushing on a far distant sound. Winging my song is the wind of my breast, and my love glows over the land. And my love, and my love, and my love glows over the land. My foot carries days of the old into new. Our dreaming shows us the way. Wondrous my faith settles deep in the earth, rising green to bring a new day. Rising green, rising green, rising green to bring a new
Thank you, Jen, and thank you, Julia, for restoring our vision. And I don't know if we have introduced someone, but we need to be thanking Callie Alders, who is helping out on piano. Thank you for joining us. You are no stranger, but we shouldn't treat you like one. Let us now begin to close this time of worship and reception and reflection. And doing so, the reminder that coffee hour will begin immediately after the service. Leafy greens, courtesy of the good folks of Ajaski, are available to any of those who would like some in the room just adjacent to Fellowship Hall. And food and household items from our grocery support program are there available as well. Jane reminded me to offer a little announcement at the close. If you fill out your adult learning surveys, there is a place at the, Carol's holding it up. Thank you, Carol. A place at the back table for you to place those. We will look for any wisdom and information you have to share. We also, once again, have a hot lunch, courtesy of the staff of Mia's Indian Cuisine. Cash only, please. And a reminder that a after-service discussion will take place in the lounge this afternoon. Let us now prepare to extinguish our chalice, and may these words from my late friend and colleague, Martha Munson, be our guide. We extinguish the chalice here that it may glow gently in our hearts. May it light our path as we leave this place. May it guide our way until we are together again. Kali, will you bless us and leading us in our closing song, Spirit of Life, which will be above and in your gray hymnals as 123. Let us sing our closing song. Please rise as you are willing and able. Please be seated. As now we return to the challenge and the joy of helping the world come alive in love, let us go with love in our hearts sowing seeds of justice from our hands with peace in each and every of our steps. Go in peace, my friends. Go making peace.